Hello everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand, internal medicine physician. Welcome to another video. One of the most common pieces of feedback I hear and general complaints about our healthcare and medical system is that people simply can't find a good doctor. I can't find a good doctor. My family member simply can't find a good doctor. And there are many reasons why I think millions of people all over the Western world are perceiving this. Indeed, all over the world, not just the Western world, but I obviously want to focus on the Western world in this particular video, particularly the UK and the United States. Now, before we get started, I want to give you this perspective. I, of course, talk a lot about the problems we face, the immense problems, the crises we face in healthcare and medicine, because there are indeed so many. But I have no regrets whatsoever going into this field. I'm tremendously proud. I'm honored to be able to call myself a physician and serve my patients. I'm also eternally grateful, as I mentioned in a recent video, that I got educated pre-wokeism. I think I received a fantastic medical school education in the United Kingdom. And then when I came over to the United States, when I hopped across the pond, I think I got a tremendous residency medical education. And this was all pre-wokeism, when our professors, when the doctors who supervised us really taught true medicine. And I am very worried about the current generation who are basically being taught by political activists. And I said this recently as well. I do believe this is going to really come back and bite us. This is not the right way to do things. We should be teaching real medicine and focusing on what really matters. I'm also grateful that learning medicine and being a doctor has given me the chance to travel the world. Obviously, the human body, most diseases are the same exactly wherever you go, and you can travel as a doctor. And I also think for any healthcare professional, one thing that we get fairly early on, which is different from many other careers, is because of what we do, we get a perspective of life, of being sick, the fragility of life, which really is very unique. And I believe that I was blessed to get this very early on. And you have that perspective going forward about life being very short, about illness being able to strike out of the blue, and the importance of grabbing every single day and treasuring every single moment. I think practicing medicine gives you that perspective. But anyway, as for the crises that we face in healthcare, the United Kingdom and the United States are the two countries I'm most familiar with. They, of course, have very different healthcare systems. The United Kingdom is basically a government-controlled healthcare system, the National Health Service, and the United States is more corporate-owned. In fact, it is just about the most for-profit healthcare system anywhere in the world. But I do think that there is a huge amount of overlap between the problems faced by a country like the United Kingdom and the United States when it comes to baseline issues and the autonomy of physicians and how doctors have really moved away from personalized care. This has happened in many Western countries, and I think it's fascinating that countries as different as the UK and US are facing similar crises when it comes to healthcare. We are so far removed from those good old days that doctor, and I'm talking particularly, of course, primary care, which is decimated basically in both countries, United States and United Kingdom. It's very difficult to find a quote-unquote good primary care doctor that will follow you up. Long gone are those days of that doctor who would take care of you and your family, who would visit your house with their little doctor bag. Those days are long gone. And I believe that this is not for the good. Of course, technological advances, many of them are very good, but we have gone so far away from that doctor-patient relationship and the doctor really taking care of you, knowing you and following you up. That is a thing of the past. So why today, in 2023, can you not find a good doctor, you and your family member? Why is it such common feedback and such a common complaint that you can't find a good doctor? I believe a lot of them are the fault of the individual doctor. We have to assign blame where it lies. But I also believe there are system-wide issues. Well, first and foremost, it must be said that there are a large number of doctors out there who are simply not good communicators. They don't have good interpersonal skills. They don't know how to communicate with empathy. They don't know how to listen more than they talk. This is a huge problem. And I've been talking about this for a long time. In fact, in a previous life, when I was more part of the establishment, Dr. Dhand, part of the establishment, I actually used to teach communication skills classes to healthcare professionals because it's something that for a very long time I thought that we can do better with in medicine and healthcare. Being a good communicator is key to being a good physician. I cannot overstate this point. In fact, it's often more important than technical skills and medical knowledge. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that that's a good thing, but patients will often remember and appreciate a doctor more who can communicate well, more so than a doctor who is technically savvy. That's something to think about. Now, I don't think you can ever take someone who's a bad communicator in any profession, let alone medicine, and turn them into an amazing communicator. But you can always take people a few steps up, a few notches up on the communication ladder. Teach things such as active listening skills, how to communicate with empathy, how to obviously listen more than you talk, how to not dismiss things, how to not be robotic, and just think of every patient as another name on your list, how you can treasure that doctor-patient interaction and really make the most and appreciate the importance of what you're doing. I don't think a large number of doctors realize how important communication skills are. So I'd say that's the first point there. If doctors are not good communicators, you are not going to perceive them as a good doctor. And I personally have heard horror stories. I've been part of horror stories where I've heard about terrible communication with physicians, whether that's family members, friends, maybe even yourself have experienced this, but it's all too common a complaint that you had an awful communication situation with a doctor who was supposed to be taking good care of you. Now let's get to the fact that many doctors out there are perceived to be robotic protocol followers. They simply accept orders given from above and mindlessly repeat it, regurgitate it. What happened to that hero doctor, that TV doctor that many of us grew up with, that independent thinker, that critical thinker that would always go the extra mile for their patient? I know that for lots of people out there in the medical profession, that's what we grew up with. That is what we wanted to emulate. What happened to that? Now, we can blame a lot of factors, including medical education, basically teaching doctors to memorize things. It starts when you're a medical student, but to not think out of the box. It's all about protocol following directives, and not asking the right questions, and realizing that in medicine, there is never a one-size-fits-all approach. If you are a doctor, you are not a mindless robotic protocol follower. You must understand that every patient you encounter is a unique individual and should be treated as such. And even when we think about what medical students receive in terms of education, even going back to before they're selected for medical school, nowadays, with the current political climate, you know what happens, don't you? Medical students are basically selected on the basis of personality tests. There are extensive personality tests, so we only get a certain type of medical student come through. And that is why I really fear for the future even more than I do the present, because the types of medical students that are being selected by our authorities who think that they're all about diversity, they are not about diversity. They are about uniformity of thought. That is not how medicine and healthcare should work. And indeed, if you look at the past, the history of medicine, it is always the people who were critical thinkers who have made great strides in the field of science and medicine. So a medical student graduates. Let's just say that they want to independently think and critically think. Do you think they're going to do that with the current levels of debt? I feel enormously sorry for students coming through the system now. This was an issue. It started to become an issue when I was going through the system in the United Kingdom. Now in the UK, medical student debt has soared, but it's still a fraction of what it is in the United States. Imagine graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. You are basically in servitude. You're not going to step out of line. You're going to do exactly what is told to you. So that's another reason why you find it very difficult to find a doctor who thinks outside the box and displays a fraction, even an inkling of critical thinking skills. But what about the system that new doctors graduate in? A few decades ago, a doctor would go into independent practice. That has now gone. As far as the United States goes, most physicians now are employees of major corporate healthcare systems. Even if they're non-profit healthcare systems, there is still a corporate type of mentality. These doctors no longer own their own practices, and they lose a massive sense of autonomy by doing this. And that is why your doctor is more likely to be a protocol follower from the very institution that they are employed by. But you simply don't have enough doctors to choose from, whether they are good doctors or bad doctors. Forget trying to find find a good doctor, you often can't find any doctor, especially as it pertains to primary care. We do not have enough physicians in either the United States or United Kingdom. And in both countries, actually, this requires government funding to train more doctors. Even in America, the government funds residency training. And we have an older population. The population is aging. They're also getting sicker for a number of reasons, including big food. Don't get me started on that. And then we have the influence of the big pharma industry, which benefits from more people being sick. It is a vicious circle. But we haven't got enough doctors in the first place for people to choose from. Primary care should be the backbone of any healthcare system. It is being decimated. And I do think a lot of this is deliberate. There are lots of reasons why primary care is being dismantled and many people who benefit from that. And is it just an issue of pay? I think it's actually much more than that. Even if you drastically increase the pay for doctors, I think a lot of doctors, especially the good ones, will still want to leave because the system is so difficult. And this gets me to my final point. The way that doctors practice and the systems that we are in right now, whether it's because of government, whether it's because of the influence of corporations, that traditional doctor-patient relationship has completely fallen by the wayside. Doctors nowadays are overwhelmed. Overwhelmed isn't even a big enough term. They are overwhelmed with bureaucracy. In the United States, for instance, the amount of computer work, the amount of tick boxes that are needed makes doctors mindless, I call them click bots. In the past, a doctor used to spend maybe 15-20 minutes with a patient and then used to spend perhaps 1 minute scribbling a quick note, writing a quick prescription. Nowadays, the computer work is overwhelming, and there are a lot of other hidden agendas in terms of the way healthcare information technology is rolled out, the companies that are benefiting, etc. That time commitment has been flipped. A doctor may spend a handful of minutes with the patient, but then could spend 20 minutes, half an hour on the computer doing the documentation. So no wonder your doctor can barely look you in the eye because they're more focused on getting their computer work done, ticking all of the boxes. That is the way the system now works. So those are just some reasons then why you and your family can't find a good doctor. There are lots of medical professionals who want to be good doctors, but the system makes it very difficult. But we cannot let doctors completely off the hook here. Because of what's happened with the profession, it's very obvious that a lot of it wouldn't have happened without extremely weak leadership from physicians. No profession could have ceded that much territory and completely decimated their own way of working if they weren't extremely weak and cowardly in the face of whether it's big government or big business. They have completely and utterly sold out. So how do we possibly then address this issue and take things back to where they should be? The doctor-patient relationship, encouraging good communication, follow-up, honesty, transparency, all the things that good medicine should be about, as well as being able to spend time with patients. Well, the only way is a complete and radical overhaul, a complete revolution of the system. We need to get all of these other players out of medicine, and we need the right leaders in healthcare. I do think most doctors out there in practice today, maybe just a slight majority, but most doctors want to do a good job, but they are trapped in a terrible, terrible system. But fewer things could be more important for a society than having good doctors. How many of you out there, I'm sure everybody has an experience in their life or with a family member where they've had a good, competent physician, and it's made all the difference at a low time in someone's life when they really needed that healthcare, that attention, and they needed a good doctor to be by their side. But I have listed in this video all of the reasons why so many people out there struggle to find good doctors. Only a radical overhaul, a complete revolution, starting with medical education and finishing with our healthcare system so that we can get back to the ideals of medicine, the virtues, the original virtues of Hippocrates, who, if you read his quotes from 2,500 years ago, knew more about being a good doctor than many people involved in healthcare and medicine today. today. Thanks everyone for listening. Let me know your thoughts. Check out my online school and my Uncensored platform. Those links are down below. Hit the like button if you like this video and the bell button for more similar videos in the future. Remember, huge swathes of our medical and healthcare establishment are completely corrupted, and one of the best things you can do for yourself is to empower yourself to do everything possible to have a healthier lifestyle so that you can stay away from even needing doctors in the first place. Keep yourself and your family empowered, and you will be best placed to avoid the catastrophe that is our current medical system. Thanks everyone again, and I will speak to you all in the next video.